All right, let's dive right into it. Today, we are unpacking a really bold prediction from our source material. The idea is that in 2025, we are about to go through a societal shift that is so huge, so profound, it only comes around once every 500 years. So let's get into what this prophesied new renaissance is all about.
So, where does this whole idea even come from? Well, it all hinges on this one powerful claim. In the original French, it says, every 500 years or so, these three outer planets trigger a new Renaissance period. The core idea here is that there's this recurring cosmic cycle that's about to kick off a massive change in human history, just like it's apparently done before.
Okay, so just to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about, the source draws a direct line to the historical Renaissance. You know, the one that peaked back in 1504. But while that was all about a rebirth of art and science, this new Renaissance is painted as something much, much deeper. We're talking about a fundamental transformation of our very spirit and consciousness. So you're probably wondering, what's behind a claim this big? Let's peel back the layers and look at the astrological argument the source presents. The heart of this whole theory comes down to a very specific alignment between the three outermost planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. The source calls it a harmonious interference pattern. Think of this planetary dynamic as the engine that's driving this entire historical cycle. Now, the source is really clear on this. This isn't some random one-off event. It's framed as a predictable, recurring cosmic clock. So let's look at the timeline it lays out so we can really understand this 500-year pattern. Okay, so check out this timeline. You can see back in 1504, Neptune was right at the midpoint between Uranus and Pluto, which the source connects directly to the peak of the Renaissance. And now, in 2025, that exact same configuration is coming back. It's kicking off a period of influence that really started around 2020 and is supposed to last until about 2030. So what makes 2025 so special? Why isn't it just a repeat of 1504? Well, the source argues it's way more powerful this time around. And that's because there are all these other astrological factors converging at once, like a harmonious sextile aspect, Neptune being at the Aries point, which is a huge deal in the zodiac. Plus, you've got major planets moving into new signs. It's like a perfect cosmic storm. And you just heard me say the word sextile, so let's quickly break that down because it's actually super important here. In astrology, a sextile is when planets are at a 60-degree angle to each other. It's considered this really positive, harmonious aspect that creates opportunity. So the source is using this to say that the energies in 2025 are all working together in a really constructive way. All right, so we've got this huge planetary alignment, but what's it actually supposed to do? Well, the source breaks it down into a few key pillars. Let's start with the first one, a massive global spiritual awakening. And we're not just talking about people picking up new beliefs here. The text describes it as a literal reactivation of the soul of humanity. The central idea is that we're all going to experience this renewed, powerful connection to what the source calls our higher self, basically our true, authentic spiritual nature. To kind of put this in perspective, the source points back to the spiritual movements in the 80s and 90s, which interestingly also happened during a Pluto-Neptune sextile. But it says that whole period was just a warm-up, a precursor. The 2025 event, it claims, is going to have effects that are so much deeper and more permanent, kicking off what it calls a golden age. Okay, on to the second pillar. This is where the prediction takes a turn into a complete revolution of human creativity and knowledge. Whoa, when it comes to art, this source really doesn't pull any punches. It claims that ever since the late 1800s, art has been hijacked and used as a tool for what it calls dark force programming, basically a form of manipulation. This new renaissance, though, is predicted to bring art back to its true purpose, to reflect the beauty of the soul, and to be a way for us to communicate on a much deeper soul-to-soul level. And if you thought that was wild, wait till you hear what it says about science. The document basically dismisses things like rockets and electric cars as just fancy updates on technology that's been around for centuries. It predicts a new science will just burst onto the scene, one that finally embraces things like consciousness, spirit, and non-physical realities, leading to breakthroughs that will totally change everything. And get this is probably the most mind-blowing part. According to the source, these incredible technologies aren't just some far-off dream. They've already been developed, but they're being suppressed. And the list is straight out of sci-fi: free energy, teleportation, interstellar travel, and yeah, even immortality, all supposedly just waiting in the wings to be released.
Okay, so for our final pillar, we're diving into some pretty deep, kind of esoteric territory. It's all about the reawakening of what the Source calls goddess energy, which it says is the essential catalyst for this entire transformation.
Now, the source gives a really, really specific four-step roadmap for this, and it's aimed directly at women. It talks about doing deep internal work to move past trauma and to stop projecting these negative archetypes, which it specifically calls Dracos/reptilian, onto men. The whole process is about achieving true empowerment through a special meditative practice, which in turn helps liberate the entire planet. And that special meditative practice I mentioned, it all comes down to this one phrase, this like literal password. It's in French, énergie sexuelle d'amour inconditionnel, which translates to sexual energy of unconditional love. Meditating on this phrase, according to the source, is the key that unlocks and reactivates this powerful dormant energy.
And, just to add a few more fascinating layers here, the source claims this energy is pretty much non-existent on the surface of the planet right now. But it's being supported from inside the Earth by the Agartha network. That's a whole belief system about an inner Earth civilization. It also says this energy gets a boost from the rare crystal red beryl.
So you put all this together, the spiritual awakening, the new science, this powerful reawakened energy. What's the endgame? Well, the document describes it as nothing less than a complete, total, and irreversible transformation of our world.
Well, here it is, the bottom line. The ultimate claim is that this reawakened goddess energy is the direct trigger for the new renaissance. Its return is the thing that will supposedly cause the collapse of what the source calls the matrix, its term for the entire global system of control we live in today.
And the source is absolutely sure about this. This isn't presented as a maybe or a what if. It's framed as a done deal, an irreversible process that's going to end with these so-called dark forces completely losing their grip on the planet. For good. So, wow. Regardless of what you make of all the astrology and the specific claims, the picture the source paints is one of absolutely radical change. It leaves us with this really compelling question to think about. Just for a second, set aside the how and the why. What would it actually feel like to live through a second renaissance? A period of change that profound? It's a fascinating thought. Thanks for joining us for this one.